The chief's demands are not being met, and they are partners with Manitoba Hydro. They are not treated as partners. But today we're coming to the Prime Minister and asking him to intervene.
Tonight, calls for the federal government to step in and shut Kiosk Dam down.
Instead of fixing it, what they went and did was that they gave it back to Alberta, who was the cause of the problem.
And pressure is on to save the declining caribou herds in Alberta. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Four Cree Nations are calling for a temporary halt to work at a hydro construction site in northern Manitoba. A COVID-19 outbreak was declared at the Kiosk Generating Station project last month. Nearby communities are concerned Manitoba Hydro is not doing enough to address rising numbers of cases and believe this will lead to outbreaks in the nations. As Brittany Hobson shows us, they're calling on the federal government to step in.
There are a growing number of COVID-19 cases at the Kiosk Generating Station construction site. Chiefs from 4 Cree Nations near the site, along with other Indigenous leadership across the province, say it's time for the federal government to step in.
The chief's demands are not being met, and they are partners with Manitoba Hydro. They are not treated as partners. But today we're coming to the Prime Minister and asking him to intervene to make sure that the situation is under control.
The first case of COVID-19 found at the Manitoba Hydro project was reported on October 25th. The Crown Corporation says there are now 20 confirmed cases and are waiting on additional testing from 11 workers. There are currently 59 workers isolating in special dorm rooms on the site. The 4 Cree Nations are partners on the project and have been calling for a temporary shutdown in order to contain the outbreak. York Factory First Nation Chief Leroy Constant says their concerns have fallen on deaf ears.
I'm going to call Kiosk a super spreader. I'm going to say that right now. Right now, they haven't contained it. The leadership is frustrated beyond means, and we're here today to shine light on that.
The project employs approximately 200 members from the communities. Leadership worries the virus could spread. Fox Lake Cree Nation Chief Maurice Beardy says there is a breakdown in information from Hydro and the Northern Health Authority, making it difficult to determine who has tested positive.
How are we supposed to protect our members, our elders, and the people that we love all around us, our friends, our family, when this information that is being shared by Manitoba Hydro is being dealt with at the very, very, very minimal?
Leadership would like to see an updated pandemic plan from Hydro. They say conversations have stalled.
The virus is in their court now, so it all depends what they do. And if they don't come up to the plate and do what's right, then we will we'll come together as 4 chiefs and determine what our next steps is. But right now, it's Manitoba Hydro and the province need to step up and do their due diligence.
The province moved the site to a critical level or code red on Tuesday. Manitoba Hydro says it's reduced its workforce and have tested all workers on site. They have also closed the dining hall and the camp's gym. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thanks, Brittany. According to Indigenous Services Canada, as of yesterday, there have been a total of 1,655 confirmed positive cases of COVID-19 on First Nations. There are currently 535 active cases, 1,105 recovered cases, and there have been 15 deaths. Northern Manitoba First Nation leaders have been calling out for, of course, the shutdown to the Manitoba Hydro Kiosk camp since yesterday when 21 workers tested positive. During question period today, Nikki Ashton of the NDP, she pleaded for the Prime Minister to step in.
Mr. Speaker, people are scared. After months of First Nations doing everything they can to stay safe, there is a COVID-19 outbreak at the Kiosk work camp where there are hundreds of workers. Manitoba Hydro hasn't shut down the camp. They're not sharing information with First Nations, and there are concerns that they are using questionable testing techniques. This could put our entire region at risk. Will the Prime Minister intervene directly on behalf of First Nations and Northern people? Will he call for immediate action to stop the spread of COVID-19 at Kiosk and throughout our region?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are obviously concerned by the outbreak of COVID-19 cases at the Kiosk generating station, and we're monitoring the situation closely. We expect work on the Manitoba Hydro project to follow public health advice to keep workers and Indigenous communities safe. We will support First Nations leadership in working with their partners on measures appropriate to protect their communities.
Today, the City of Montreal became the first municipality in Quebec to unveil a 5-year reconciliation strategy. Mayor Valérie Plante says the plan was ready in early 2020, but COVID-19 pushed back the big reveal. The strategy tackles 7 areas of concern, including the nation-to-nation relationship, Indigenous visibility, economic development, and protection of natural resources. The mayor pointed to a number of symbolic gestures made in the last 2 years, including a street name change and a change to the city's flag. The new document provides a framework to continue improving, but stakeholders say it should not be mistaken for an action plan.
I think what we're saying in the strategy is, let's use what works. We know what are the good conditions for this to work, and let's push as much as we can. And of course, when we talk about SPVM or other things, it's also how we connect with the government of Quebec to make sure how can we get the right funding is also a big element.
This framework gives us a backbone. It gives us something to go and negotiate with. And it also gives us some kind of a legacy document where the education will be done by the institutions themselves. So us actors can deliver on what we're trying to deliver on, just creating services, housing, better environments for people.
An Eagle Lake First Nation great-grandmother is on day 26 of her hunger strike. The issue, an Indigenous Child and Family Services agency that she says is keeping her from seeing her great-grandchildren who are in care. The Kukum, who we cannot identify because of privacy laws, says First Nations need to get moving on taking over child welfare to ensure that children are not separated from their culture and stable family members.
And I encourage everyone to stand up and encourage community members across, not only in my community, but across the tribal areas across Canada, to begin to think about Bill C-92 for our children. Miigwech.
Eagle Lake First Nation Chief and Council recently put out a letter in support of the great-grandmother's fight with Anishinaabe Abenuje CFS, based in northwestern Ontario, for visits with her great-grandkids to be resumed. Well, for the last month, a Mi'kmaq chief fought for the treaty right to fish a moderate livelihood. He turned down an invite to appear at the House of Commons and was sucker-punched by a non-Indigenous fisherman. Shpagin First Nation gained attention when Chief Mike Sack launched a moderate livelihood fishery over a month ago. He has maintained Mi'kmaq treaty rights are not negotiable, and a violent backlash ensued from non-Indigenous fishermen grabbing headlines across the world as they attacked and harassed Mi'kmaq fishers. Sack himself was the victim of an alleged assault caught on video. Well, yesterday his community re-elected Sack to a third term as chief. Sack garnered 70% of the votes cast. Well, it's the day after the big day and the big night and the morning after, and the U.S. presidential race is still too close to call and could be for another day or two. President Donald Trump and Joe Biden are still neck and neck in several key battleground states with millions of votes yet to be counted. All eyes are on Pennsylvania and Michigan, as well as a handful of other states still counting votes. Biden currently has the lead with 253 electoral college votes compared to Trump's 214. Despite the numbers, Trump falsely claimed victory in the early hours of Wednesday morning, while Biden's campaign team maintains that he is on track to win. Here at home, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau addressed the election south of the border during today's question period. He avoided speaking directly about a potential Trump or Biden win, but said that Canadian interests will remain a priority for his government.
I want to reassure Canadians that the Canadian government is watching very carefully events unfold in the United States as they go through their electoral processes. As always, we will seek to make sure that we're able to defend Canadian interests and Canadians as we move forward, as the Americans make an important decision about the next steps forward. We will watch. We will continue to defend Canadians.
The Prime Minister says that Canada would continue working closely with the U.S., whatever the outcome. Well, we need to take a break, but still ahead, an 11th hour attempt to save declining caribou numbers in Alberta.
Instead of fixing it, what they went and did was that they gave it back to Alberta, who was the cause of the problem.
Welcome back. The federal and Alberta governments have been under pressure to protect declining caribou herds in that province. Late last month, both governments signed an agreement to help the herds, but now several groups are saying that the new deal won't act quickly enough to actually help. Chris Stewart has the details.
Alberta's caribou populations are threatened. There are only 15 herds left in the province, with an estimated total population of about 2,000. Last year, the Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation, the Mikisew Cree First Nation, and environmental groups said the animals were at risk from clear-cutting and resource extraction. And they filed an application with the federal government to protect the caribou under the Species at Risk Act. Under that act, the feds would have to work with Alberta to protect critical habitat for endangered species. Rather than forcing the feds and Alberta to follow the Species at Risk Act, the federal and provincial governments decided to work together. In October, they signed an agreement to help the populations improve, and the legal action was dropped. The federal government is not using the Species at Risk Act and will not act themselves. Instead, they will help fund Alberta's caribou plan. The Alberta government says they will have a plan in place within 5 to 10 years for all caribou populations, but it could take 50 to 100 years to get the herds stable. Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation Chief Alan Adams says he is disappointed the federal government is counting on Alberta to solve the problem.
Instead of fixing it, what they went and did was that they gave it back to Alberta, who was the cause of the problem, and it's going nowhere. It's just like, how would you say, when the fox comes to the hen house, it creates a lot of problems. But this time now, it's just like us, we're putting the hen house right where the fox is living. So I don't think it's going to get any better.
Adams says that he does not expect any real action will be done. He says the herds do not have 5 years before action is taken.
In 5 years, nobody's going to do nothing about it. It's going to be forgotten in their system, and then we're going to be right back at it again, arguing about the same scenario.
Carolyn Campbell, a conservation specialist with the Alberta Wildlife Association, a nonprofit, says that the new agreement has no teeth. She thinks it might be business as usual, with oil and gas extraction and clear-cutting continuing to threaten the caribou herds.
At least the agreement gives a timeline, but there's no consequences if they miss it. That's the problem. And meanwhile, there's ongoing forestry. We don't believe it's sustainable and supporting caribou and caribou's declining populations.
Chief Adams says he wants the federal government to sit down with Indigenous groups in the province.
If the government is serious about working on this issue, then they have to come and sit down with the First Nation in order to move this thing forward, because giving it back to the province is just giving back trouble to them.
Alberta Environment and Parks Minister Jason Nixon and Federal Minister for the Environment and Climate Change Jonathan Wilkinson were not available to comment before airtime. Eco-justice lawyer Barry Robinson, working with the coalition, says they are not ruling out future litigation. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Thanks, Chris. We want to hear what you think about the caribou situation in Alberta. What should be done? Let us know what you think. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, where you can share your comments there. A First Nation is speaking out against a bill to repeal restrictions on an oil tanker ban on the north coast of BC. Gitgat First Nation says that oil tankers are still not welcome in their territory, which is located at the mouth of Douglas Channel. Yesterday, Conservative MP James Cumming introduced a bill to repeal shipping restrictions on the oil tanker moratorium on the north coast of BC to help oil exports. Many nations on the north coast have been against crude oil and bitumen there because of the potential for spills. Gitgat councillor Cam Hill says the fight to protect the coast has gone on for decades.
We were dead set against it in the 70s. We're dead set against it in the 2000s as far as Northern Gateway went. And we definitely would not entertain the thought of lifting the tanker ban as a community and as a Gitgat nation.
Time for another break, but when we come back, a 4-day cultural sharing event in Vancouver.
You know, our stories are the first stories here of this land, this water. Our stories are not on the surface. They're embedded. They're right into the Mother Earth.
Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Yesterday we showed you the wrong picture, but today we'd like to show you the correct one, taken by Maria Powell. This is the amazing view from the Glenmore Reservoir located in southwest Calgary, Alberta. Thanks for that, Maria. And with Remembrance Day just around the corner, we would like to see the photos of your Indigenous veterans from your family. Send your pictures to share@aptn.ca and maybe your photo will be our photo of the day. Well, let's take a look now at tomorrow's weather forecast. Off to the east coast, we've got 13 in cloud for Fredericton, 3 in sunshine for St. John's. Kuujjuaq, snow and 2 degrees, -3 in snow for Nain. Gaspé, 8 and some showers expected. Montreal, sunshine and 16 degrees. North Bay, mix of sun and cloud and 11, 12 and sunny for Sault Ste. Marie. Kapuskasing and Timmins, mix of sun and cloud, 7 degrees, -1 for Big Trout Lake. Norway House, -1 in snow, -2 in snow for God's Lake. Sunshine and 16 for Gimli and Winnipeg, 18 and sunny for Brandon. 17 in sunshine for Saskatoon, 20 and sunny for Regina. 1 and snow for Buffalo Narrows and La Ronge, -14 in snow for Stony Rapids. -6 for Fort Chip and high level snow there. 11 and some showers for Edmonton, 18 and sunny for Lethbridge. Kamloops, 13 and rain, cloud and 8 for Quesnel. Prince Rupert and Sandspit, some showers and 10 degrees, -9 in Fort Nelson and snow. -23 in snow for Beaver Creek, -30 in sunny skies for Dawson City. Norman Wells, -22 and some cloud, -13 and a mix of sun and cloud for Wati. Inuvik and Fort McPherson, -19 and mostly sunny, -23 and sunny for Colville Lake. Nunyat, -12 and snow. Whale Cove, -22 and snow. Tallyoak, -14 and snow. Joe Haven, -17 and snow. -7 and snow for Iqaluit. A 4-day cultural sharing event is taking place in Vancouver in the heart of the downtown east side. As Tina House explains, it's a chance to reflect on the history of Vancouver and where we are today.
We have to be 11 feet or 12 feet from the audience. And then we need the screen. We need to put up a screen for the projection, so that'll be back and behind them.
It's a busy day at the Fire Hall Theatre as last-minute preparations are underway for In the Beginning, a cultural sharing. It's a 4-day event featuring some of the brightest minds in the Indigenous community. Almost like an Indigenous TED Talk, speakers like Woodrow Morrison, originally from Haida Gwaii, will talk about what it was like for Indigenous people before contact. And Chief Leah George Wilson from the Tsleil-Waututh Nation will talk about how her people thrived and prospered off the land by utilizing Indigenous knowledge and traditions. For storyteller and filmmaker Rosemarie Georgeson, creating this platform is a dream come true.
These people that are participating in this, they're all musicians, performers, playwrights, lawyers, activists, really strong, powerful people. I'm looking forward to the conversations that we're going to get to hear.
Donna Spencer is the co-creator of the project. She says this neighborhood does have its issues, such as homelessness and drug addiction, but it's a community with a lot of heart and soul, along with a storied history.
We started to look for Indigenous history because we wanted to do a piece about the history of this neighborhood and what was connected, how the people connected into the fire hall. And we couldn't find very much written history. It's not documented. So we kept looking, and then we went, well, we have to go deeper. And as Rose said, it's kind of like digging down into the midden of stories and bringing those stories up.
You know, our stories are the first stories here of this land, this water. Our stories are not on the surface. They're embedded. They're right into the Mother Earth.
In the Beginning kicks off on November the 4th until the 7th, and only 50 people will be allowed into the theater each night with all COVID-19 safety precautions. The discussion will also be streamed at a later date. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
Thanks, Tina. Halloween just passed, but that doesn't mean that all the spirits are gone. The cast and crew from The Other Side visited APTN's building to do an paranormal investigation. I spoke with them on In Focus today about their investigation and how they connect to the spirit world.
In the perspective of a spiritual elder or a spiritual guide, and that's someone who basically sits on the outside, watches, takes care of things, making sure that things spiritually are, taken care of and connected properly, and making sure that, as elders always caution us, spiritual elders are always telling us to really be careful when we do these types of things, that we make sure that when we do encourage the spirits to come in and help us, to talk to us, that we do it in the best way that we can. Jeff and Aaron do that really well.
So you're always building that, what we call intuitive gifting, but some people might call it spiritual gifting, but we're always doing that in ceremony. It's probably one of the most important things as Indigenous people. So, coming along with the show really was aligning with already what I was doing, and it was such an amazing opportunity to really speak to spirit in a really concrete way. I mean, that is what is really unique about this program, this family here with The Other Side, is that we go in, we have ceremony, we do things with a lot of respect, and then we get this really solid, tangible evidence.
Our whole mandate with the show is always to approach things from a very respectful place, whether we're dealing with spirit or with our living people that we're dealing with, and certainly embracing the particular regions that we're in, who may have different customs and be governed by different treaties and different tribes and different ordinances. We do a landing ceremony at the beginning of every investigation as soon as we arrive.
If you missed today's In Focus episode, you can find it on the APTN News Facebook page. It also re-airs right here on your TV on Friday. Check your local listings for that. Some freaky stuff was captured in that APTN paranormal investigation. You will want to check it out. And In Focus, of course, makes a great podcast. If you want to catch up on past shows, you can go to aptnnews.ca/podcast, and you can find a whole library in there to listen to as you go about your business. We are all out of time for your news tonight. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Thanks for joining me. Take your medicines and stay healthy.